found a ride back home from here. Camped out last night in a tent. My son Noah. Yeah, that's but he gets his camping merit badge out of it. You have to camp in the snow at least once.
Did you camp with him?
Did it? Here's something to get us in the holiday spirit, the Christmas spirit. Sorry, I'll be specific.
Come on, Steve.
Said the night wind to the little lamb, do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb, do you see what I see? A star, dancing in the night, with a tail as big as a kite, with a tail as big as a kite. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? Ringing through the sky, shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? A song, high above the trees, with a voice as big as the sea, with a voice as big as the sea. Said the shepherd boy to the mighty king, do you know what I know? In your palace warm, mighty king, do you know what I know? A child shivers in the cold, let us bring him silver and gold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Said the king to the people everywhere, listen to what I say. Pray for peace, people everywhere. Listen to what I say. A child, sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and light. A child, sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. He will bring us goodness and
Brian Dozer. Well, happy Sunday, everybody. I'm Lynn Taylor. I'm sitting in for Maura this morning. Happy to be here. And Hanukkah is coming up in a couple of days, and I thought in this holiday season it would be nice to do a song from the Jewish tradition, and this song is called Dona Dona, so please sing along in the chorus. And I love it because it talks about the choice that we all have to be a calf bound or a swallow flying. On the wagon bound for market, there the swallow must learn to fly. Oh, how the winds are laughing, they laugh with all their might. Laugh and laugh the whole day through, and half the summer's night. Dona, 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 dona. 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 Dona, 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 do.
All right, Lynn. All right.
So please rise if you are able while we do Surely the Presence.
Let us pray. Surely the presence of the Lord is here because you are present here, not simply in this place, but in life. It is through you, the love of God, the kindness, the power, the peace, the strength, the faith of God is felt and experienced by all those around you. So today as we come together to celebrate during the season where we remember the nativity, the birth of ones whose teachings would transform us forever, and our awakening to our own divine nature. We do so first with hope, and today in the second Sunday of Advent, we do so grounded in peace. So we light our second candle of our Advent wreath to send ourselves in that intention of peace, the peace that passes all understanding, the peace that is grounded in the divinity of who each and every one of us is. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen. So it is. You may be seated. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to all you brave souls who came out into the winter wonderland to be here. In case we have not met, I am Reverend Ogun Holder, Senior Minister here. I am so thrilled to see all of you coming out to celebrate. And I also want to give a special thanks and shout out to Lynn Taylor, as always. So glad when you're here to sing with us. As I like, so let me back up a little bit. Some of you may not know this, but I am from Barbados, and Winter and I have this like ongoing like love-hate relationship. Don't squeeze the teddy bears that make noise. It's perfectly okay if you do. We'll explain what the teddy bears are later if you're not clear why. If this might be your first time here and you're wondering what's happening, did we fall into a toy store? No, teddy bears will make sense in a little bit. But coming from Barbados, as always, Winter and I kind of have this back and forth thing where I look outside and I say, oh, it's so beautiful out. Look at all the snow. And because of the snow, it's also a lot quieter. Do you notice this? Of course, because it absorbs the sound. And then I get reminded, oh, wait, I have to go out into it. And then it's not quite as fun. And so today, when I was up a little after 6, shoveling and clearing cars and all that fun stuff, which you New Englanders think nothing about because you've been here for a while, even though I've been here 3 years, it's still an opportunity to practice the presence of gratitude and say, thank God that... And that's usually where I stop, because I'm not sure what I'm thanking anyone for yet in the midst of the cold and the dark and the sweeping the snow off the cars. But I realize that, in doing so, it gets me here with you guys, so I can be thankful and grateful for that. This is what I love to do in life. I love you guys. And I'm glad to see you here. And those of you who are live streaming and didn't get in here today, I love you. I love you. I love these folks just a little bit more today because they made it. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I love you all. And as I love to say, if we want to see the face of God, face of divine, we simply look to the face of another. Just turn to someone and say, God looks good today. God even looks a little chilly today. Maybe. God looks good today. I love to say less is more, so there's fewer of us here, so there's more spirit, more energy, more vitality, because we appreciate each other that much more. And appreciate Gina, who's here to facilitate with me today. Gina.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gina Genest. I'm facilitating this morning. Isn't it magical watching that view when you're sitting here, though? The snow. It's magical. Cold, but magical. So Unity on the River is also a church that live streams its service every Sunday morning. So would you all just sort of wave back there for our camera to say good morning, streamers? We'd like to welcome anyone who's here today celebrating with us for the first time. If you are here new today, would you just raise your hand so we could bring you a welcome packet? Is anybody new today? Nobody new today. Well, there you go. All right. So Unity on the River is a center of celebration and transformation, inspiration, spirit-centeredness, oneness, and joy. Please hold these truths in your heart as we say our mission statement together. We are a vibrant spiritual community that celebrates the presence in all and awakens humanity to its divinity. And our vision statement, centered in love, we joyously co-create a world of oneness, peace, and harmony. Thank you. Some brief announcements. Today is our teddy bear delivery drive and caroling. This will be taking place at 1 o'clock today. It's open to anybody who wants to be part of this. Rebecca will also talk a little bit more about this at the end of service when the kids come in. It will take place at the Merrimack Valley Nursing Home in Amesbury. We look forward to you being with us today. And if you want to give some more love to those bears before we let go of them today, please do. We also have the coat drive still going on. We have until next Sunday, so if you have any more donations for the coat drive, please bring them in by then. Today at 12 o'clock noon in the Peace Chapel, there's a holiday meditation with Rena. Please join her there. And brunch next Sunday, Sunday, Christmas Eve, with Santa on December 24 after the 10 a.m. service. The cost is $5. And now's the time in our service where we greet each other with love and with either a handshake or a hug. And I invite you to say, I see your magnificence, I see your beauty. Namaste.
Welcome Brian Dozer back to the stage. Brian and I learned this song especially for this day. Some of you might recall it. It's an old Stevie Wonder Motown tune.
I'm wearing my hat, too, for the caroling. If you go with the teddy bears, I'll be leading the caroling. We'll be doing a lot of jingle bells before this day is over. And it has too many jingle bells. Christmas, men won't be boys, playing with bombs like kids play with toys. One warm December, our hearts will see a world where men are free.
And someday at Christmas there'll be no wars. Well, we have learned what Christmas is for. When we have found what life's really worth, then there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas we'll see a land with no hungry children and no empty hand. One happy morning people will share a world where people care.
Oh, someday at Christmas there'll be no tears. All men are equal and no men have fears. One shining moment, one prayer away from our world today. Oh, someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time.
Oh, someday Christmas night will not fail. Hate will be gone and love will prevail. Someday a new world that we can start with hope in every heart. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas time. Brian Dozer, Unity on the River Band.
And Lynn Taylor. There we go. So, like 3 weeks ago, maybe, I said to Maura, because Maura, our music director, she and I meet like every other week, and we plan out services and what music. And I said, I want the Someday at Christmas song. And she was like, what? I don't know that one. I was like, Stevie Wonder, Someday at Christmas. It'll be perfect for the Sunday. Got to talk about peace. And she said, all right, we'll see what happens. And it happened. Thank you, guys. Oh, my God. And I love how you made it your own. Stevie would have been proud. Stevie would have been proud. Speaking of some other lyrics, some other lyrics. You might recognize these lyrics. Tell me what they're from, if you recognize these lyrics. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Isaiah. Yes, from Isaiah. Yes, from Handel's Messiah as well. It's from Handel's Messiah, but Handel didn't write them. Handel, reappropriated them. Comes from the book of Isaiah in the Bible, the Old Testament. And these were words that much later after Jesus' death, which you're probably wondering, why is he talking about Jesus' death? It's Christmas time. That's the Easter talk. These words were ascribed to Jesus by the early Christian church as they were, continuing to make sense of his life and his death, because they believed he was the Messiah. They believed he was the one who would liberate them, not just spiritually, but actually politically. They actually thought he was going to usher in a new Jerusalem in their lifetime. And then next thing you know, he's up on a cross, and they're like, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. So then they really put the emphasis later on, he was here to liberate us spiritually. Therefore, he must have been the one that they talked about in Isaiah when Isaiah wrote these passages and said, unto us a child is born, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. This was all spiritual. And as I mentioned last week, in the traditional Christian idea of Advent and Jesus' return, there may be a day in the traditional Christian idea that Jesus comes back. We know here in Unity, the metaphysical approach to this is every time we awaken to our divine nature, this is the rebirth. This is the recoming of Jesus. When these words were written, for unto us a child is born, by the way, the ancient Hebrew people were in exile in Babylon, and they were taken away from their homeland. They were scattered all over the earth. They were people who were desperately seeking hope, desperately seeking something to believe in for themselves for the future. And these words were written to really instill that sense of hope and inspiration that one day they will have their liberation from the exile that they were in at that time. These words were not written to speak about Jesus. These words were not written to speak just about Jesus. These words were really written for all of us. For all of us. Because we are all princes and princesses of peace. We're all kings and queens of tranquility and love and harmony. We are the ones for whom these words were also written about. This story that we celebrate at this time every year is shrouded in a little bit of mystery, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of, how shall we say, creative storytelling, but also deeply centered in truth. And what I mean by this is, the facts of the story don't necessarily hold up. Just as these words were later placed upon Jesus, but not necessarily a prophecy about him, so maybe the story here that we honor and celebrate every year, again, let's not get tied down in the factualism of it. Most people, biblical scholars and archaeologists, realize Jesus probably was not born in Bethlehem, but Nazareth, where his family grew up, that there probably wasn't a trek to Bethlehem. All these elements were placed, again, on Jesus to make his life make sense, be in line with the prophecies, to make him into this Messiah that people were saying would be coming to liberate them. You know, sometimes I like to say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. This is kind of what happened. In order to prove Jesus' divinity, to prove that he was the Son of God who came to liberate them, they needed a better story than a baby boy born to a young couple in an armpit town called Nazareth. Because that's kind of what Nazareth was. It was just this little armpit of a town off the beaten path. So we've created this fabulous story. The story was written, embellished, exaggerated. Connections were made that may not have been there in order to make Jesus into this Messiah. But here's the interesting thing. What would have happened if they hadn't had changed the details? What would have happened if they had simply said, yeah, he was born in Nazareth to Mary and Joseph. She was not a virgin. It happened the old-fashioned way. Interesting thing that I heard on a podcast the other day. I love to listen to podcasts. People said, has anyone stopped to ask the question, was Joseph a virgin too? Right? Think about these things. So what would have happened? Here's what would have happened. We would have realized that this baby, this ordinary baby, born to an ordinary couple in an extremely ordinary place, became a teacher that would transform the world. I think that's a much better story. I think that's a story that gives me hope. We talked about hope last week. That gives me hope that I could maybe do the same, that maybe you could do the same. Each of us who are born in extremely ordinary circumstances, there is hope that we can do extremely extraordinary things, just like this little baby did. Turns out this little baby didn't have a great prophecy about him, but yet he still did something amazing that we're not simply still talking about it over 2,000 years later, but has now become this ragtag group of spiritual outlaws would become one of the world's major religions. Thank you. Every time I say something good, I get 2 points. Boop, boop. For me, that's a better story. For me, it's a better story that by following the teachings of this totally ordinary person who started an ordinary life, I can do things like be a paragon of peace. Today's the second Sunday of Advent, and we're focusing on peace today. And we say sometimes glibly in unity, peace begins with me. You know, we almost say it as an afterthought. Yes, peace begins with me. Peace begins in my heart. And then we find ourselves in situations where we forget this. And this is totally okay. This is totally human of us. We have our human experiences. But here's what I've learned from years of spiritual practice. And I know some of you have learned this too, is that when we focus on truly realizing that because we too come from ordinary circumstances, but yet, like this little babe, each and every one of us has that extraordinary spark of divinity in us. When we live from that place, that's where the transformation towards peace comes from. Not from our humanness that wants to be right, but a place that's deeper, that wants to stay connected, that wants to see an end to conflict and struggle. And it's possible to live that. It's possible to be that in the midst of conflict. It is possible to be the one that ushers in a different outcome. Many of you may be familiar with this story from World War I. They were fighting in the trenches in 1914. And it was Christmas Eve. And something extraordinary happened. They took a pause, a truce, if you will, to honor the Christmas season. And again, along the lines of don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, there's a lot of folklore around what really happened. By the way, on Friday night, we're going to be watching a movie called, my French is bad, Joyeux Noël, Merry Christmas. Hope I said that right. Based on that event. Fair warning, this is not a movie for the kids. It is set in World War I. There is a fair measure of violence involved in the movie. But this movie is probably one of the best that I've seen that depicts what I've read about what happened on that night. And how we know what happened on that night was not because someone kept a record of it when it happened. No, we know what happened because of letters that soldiers wrote home to their families. And as you know, at war times, when you write home to your families, a lot of times, eyes read those letters before they get sent home. Make sure you're not sending home secrets or anything like that. So as people were reading these letters, the authorities were reading these letters, and they were seeing them coming in from all different parts of the front, telling of these occurrences. They were like, what's going on here? Let me give you some examples of what was written. This is from British soldier, Frederick Heath. Officers, fearing treachery, ordered the men to be silent, but up and down our line, one heard the men answering that Christmas greeting from the enemy. How could we resist wishing each other Merry Christmas, even though we might be at each other's throats immediately afterwards? So we kept up a running conversation with the Germans, all the while our hands ready on our rifles. Blood and peace, enmity and fraternity, war's most amazing paradox. The night wore into dawn, a night made easier by sounds from the German trenches, the pipings of piccolos, and from our broad lines, laughter and Christmas carols. Not a shot was fired. Here's another letter from a German lieutenant. He says, the mist was so to clear, and suddenly my orderly threw himself into my dugout to say that both the German and Scottish soldiers had come out of their trenches and were fraternizing along the front. I grabbed my binoculars and, looking cautiously over the parapet, saw the incredible sight of our soldiers exchanging cigarettes, schnapps, and chocolate with the enemy. Later, a Scottish soldier appeared with a football which seemed to come from nowhere, and a few minutes later, a real football match got underway. A great many of the passes went wide, but all the amateur footballers, although they must have been very tired, played with huge enthusiasm. Us Germans really roared when a gust of wind revealed that the Scots wore no drawers under their kilts. And hooted and whistled every time they caught an impudent glimpse of one posterior belonging to one of yesterday's enemies. But after an hour's play, when our commanding officer heard about it, he sent an order that we must put a stop to it. A little later, we drifted back to our trenches, and the fraternization ended. One soldier, his name is George Eade, became friends with a German artillery man who spoke good English, and as he left, he said to him, today we have peace. Tomorrow you fight for your country. I fight for mine. Good luck. And the fighting returned the next day. And in fact, there wasn't going to be another truce till 4 years later in 1918. When we remember not just who we really are, but what it means to be centered in the divine of who we are, anything is possible. Anything is possible. The story represents a group of people who truly remembered what the reason for the season was, who shared that in common, just as we share with everyone on this planet the innate divinity of who we are, our God self. We all have it. Some of us forget. Some of us misuse that ability, but we all have it. It's what connects us. Just as these soldiers were connected by this story, by the occasion, by a season that represents connection, love, and peace. So they sought to do that, just as we sought to do. And sometimes what happens, our fears and our minds and our intellect take over, just like the commanding officers here did. When you research this, you find a lot of stories of this happening at various places along the front. And afterwards, a lot of the soldiers being reassigned to other parts of the war, because many of them, after this night, actually refused to keep on fighting. There are some stories that the truce lasted as much as a week into New Year's. Because once you connect with someone, truly connect with them, you can no longer do them any harm. You can no longer do them any harm. So this is what it means to be the peace. It means that even in the midst of our human responses like fear and sadness and anger, we dig deep and find a thing that connects us and make it happen. And part of it is to realize when we are getting in a place that is not of peace. For example, when we get angry, half the time I know I'm angry, not because I feel angry, but because I feel my voice getting louder. All of a sudden, I'm like really loud and I'm yelling. And I was like, oh, I must be angry because I'm yelling. Like, I don't feel the anger first. I hear the yelling. Do you know why we yell when we're angry, by the way? I heard this a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh, that's good. I got to use that. I believe we got it from Tara Brock, a meditation teacher. We are angry. When we are angry, we get louder, because when we become angry, the gulf between our hearts gets a little bit wider. So we got to yell to get over the space. This is also why when we're in love with someone and our hearts are connected almost as one, we lean in and we whisper. Yeah. That's how we know when we're angry. And when we can realize this, we got to find out what tools we can use to shift. For some of us, it's meditation. For some of us, it's, we go take a walk in the woods. For some of us, we all have our things. But we got to remember to practice them. There's a story about this couple who they've been married for 60 years. And it was a great relationship, and they were still madly in love, and they didn't have any secrets from each other, except for one. The wife, she had a shoebox that she kept in the floor of her closet, and she told her husband, "Whatever you do, don't look in the shoebox." And he didn't, and then she became ill, and really ill, like terminally ill, and doctor said, she's not going to make it. And the wife said, I think it's time to share with you what's in the box. So he goes and gets the box, and he opens it up, and he finds like 2 handmade crocheted dolls and $95,000 in cash. So he says to his wife, what is this? I don't understand. And the wife says, my grandmother taught me that when I am angry, not to take it out on you, my husband, but to go crochet a doll and put that anger and energy into something creative. They'd been married for 60 years, and there were 2 dolls in this box, and the man was so moved, overwhelmed, and he said, all this time, and only twice. And then he said, where'd all the money come from? She goes, that's from me selling the other dolls. Thank you. Find the thing that gets you to that place of peace. Find the thing that gets you to that place of peace. And realize it is possible. It is possible for each and every one of us to be like those soldiers who laid down their arms. It is possible for each and every one of us to step away from a place of disagreement and argument and fighting, It is possible for each and every one of us, in the face of the thing that frightens us the most, to allow it not to be a spark of rage and violence, but rather something that takes us deeper within ourselves, so that we can truly, truly be the exemplars of peace. So that when we hear those lyrics, "For unto us a child is born, and a son is given, and he shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace," that we know that this is a song about us. That as we continue to awaken to who we fully are, we do become the wonderful counselors. We do become the princes and princesses of peace. We do become God made visible, just as Jesus was, just as every avatar in our lives is. To let this be the meaning of Christmas for you. Let's take this into some meditation. So I invite you to ground yourselves. If you're comfortable, gently closing the eyes, putting both feet on the floor, taking a deep breath in, becoming fully present here and now. Connecting to a truth that may be too big for some of us to grasp right now, but still connecting to it. That same divinity that lay within the avatar we call Jesus, the way shower, is that which lies within us. That just like someone who was born to ordinary circumstances, who would do extraordinary things, this too is our path. And to know the truth, that every act of love, of peace, of hope, in the face of despair and fear and hatred, is indeed an extraordinary act. It's a miracle. So I invite you to bring to mind maybe a situation for which you still hold some anger, some resentment, maybe some fear around, some despair. And as you picture that in your mind's eye, from the depths of your heart, simply say, "I bring you peace. I bring you peace." I bring you peace. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not let them be afraid." I give you peace. I give you peace. Let us hold that intention for a few moments in the silence. I give you peace. Let this be the mantra, the statement that grounds us as we continue in this week moving forward. For every disagreement, for every moment of despair, I give you peace. And we hold that for all the names in our prayer box, for all the situations, for all the prayer requests. We hold the intention that these individuals remember to give peace, to be the peace. And should you hold that intention for anyone else, I invite you to say their names out loud now. See them as the peace. See yourselves being the peace for them. This is who we are called to be as divine souls. And so it is.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world.
Thank you for that, both Reverend Ogun and the song. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the beautiful souls who volunteer at our church as prayer chaplains. Please rise if you are able. These wonderful people can meet with you for prayer or gratitude, or to simply sit in silence with you after service, and they will hold your prayers and intentions in the strictest of confidence. Thank you. Also, if you are in need, we have home and hospital prayer chaplains that will do home visits for recuperation or hospital stays. Please see Reverend Annie Houghton or one of the home and hospital prayer chaplains. Our home and hospital prayer chaplains here today as well. If you are, please stand. Annie. Thank you. Remember, you can also submit your prayer request in the prayer box located in the back of the room. And Unity in the River now has a dedicated phone line that takes prayer requests as well. Our prayer team in Silent Unity will pray over your requests. And now is the time in our service for affirmation of tithes and offerings. Let's hold your tithes and offerings and breathe into our energy of abundance as we say our affirmation. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
streets are filled with laughter and light and the music of the season. The merchants' windows all are bright with the faces of the children, and the families hurry into their homes while the sky darkens and freezes. They'll be gathering around their hearts and tables, giving thanks for all God's graces and the birth of the rebel Jesus. The rebel Jesus.
Thank you, Lynn. Do we have the baskets? Yeah, nope, still going. So I invite you to go to that place in your hearts of knowing the true abundance that we are as divine beings in this spiritual community. We give thanks for these gifts. We give thanks for being in the flow of the never-ending abundance that is God. And we give thanks that we can give from these gifts back to this Amesbury community, the wider unity movement. And in so doing, continuing the flow of abundance. And so it is, amen. Thank you. Couple quick announcements. Speaking of being in abundant flow, and thanks to your generosity, we were actually able recently to raise all the money we needed for our new soundboard. Remember we were doing that a few weeks ago? And even better, sorry, but wait, there's more. When we raised the funds and told Brian, hey, go ahead and place the order for the soundboard, turns out that now it's $1,000 less than what it was first priced at. This is how abundance works, folks. This is how it means to be in the flow. When we get clear about who we are, what we do, and we open up ourselves to the generosity and the flow of the universe, boom, it happens. So thanks for that. Side note, don't stop your abundant giving now. We're coming on to the end of the year. We're still a little behind on budget, and I know many of you use your gifts to this place, the spiritual community, as a tax deduction. If you're going to do that, if you're going to surprise us with a really nice big monetary gift at the end of the year, yay you! Please make sure we get that in before the end of the year, before the end of this month, so that you can be given the appropriate tax credit that you deserve. Also, as you know, we own a couple of units along this strip mall here. So far, we've been having some trouble getting long-term tenants, but the board and some other folks had a great idea. Why don't we just rent the space from day rentals? Because we have so many of you in our community who are like some kind of healers. You're a Reiki healer, you're a massage therapist, you do energy work, you do astrology, all that kind of stuff. You have your own little small business set up. So if you want to rent some space here at our community, just like for the day to do a workshop or see some clients or something, we're making that happen right now. So if you're interested in that, see Peter at the Spiritual Resource Center after service to find out what the rates are and what's available to you. Also, this is a time for you to consider next year thinking of if you want to serve on the board. Speaking of the board, every year we elect new board members. To be a board member, you need to be a member here, which means you've taken Unity Basics or an abundance class. And you also need to take a third class like nonviolent communication or compassionate communication, which we happen to have coming up early next year in January, taught by Gina. So look out for more details about that. There's some information in your bulletin about that, which needs to be updated. But it's going to be right at the beginning of January. And we elect new board members at our annual meeting, which will be February 4th, I believe, the first Sunday in February. Yes. So if you're thinking about how can I step into serving this community in a greater way, the board, we meet once a month. And when I say once a month, really, just once a month, we meet We sit for a couple hours and we talk about what's going on in our community and how Spirit is really leading us to be the highest and best version of this community we can be. It's a lot of fun, and it's a real good way to serve this community and be in leadership without a huge demand on your time. So if you're interested, when we ask the board members to stand later in our service, keep an eye out for who they are and talk to them a little bit about what it means to serve on the board here of Unity on the River. Just curious, is there anyone who is not currently serving on the board but who has in the past? If you served on the board here on Unity on the River in the past, at any time, anyone else? I can see some of you. Come on, put your hands up. There we go. So you could also connect with any of these folks as well. The board is you. You are the leadership of this community. This is the great thing about how we have it set up. And finally, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, tomorrow and also next Monday, remember I told you last week, I'm doing a thing called Home for the Holidays. This is a gathering for any of you if the holidays are a time you find emotionally challenging. Maybe you're grieving, maybe it's reminding you of someone you've lost in the past, maybe just because holidays ain't your thing. And all the lights and decorations, while they bring joy to other people, maybe for you not so much. For some, holidays is a difficult time of year. We get to acknowledge that and welcome you in and make you feel like there's a place here for you as well. So tomorrow at 7, here in hospitality, I'll be here. So if any of you want to join with me, we'll sit, we'll talk, we'll share stories, drink some hot chocolate. Home for the holidays. I invite you to that tomorrow. And I think that's all I got. So Gina's got some more thank yous.
It takes so many people to give of their time to help with our Sunday service to make it what it is. Thank you to all of you who do sacred service here at Unity on the River. This week's angels, Frank, Ginny, Diane, all those who brought in cookies and dessert for the concert last week, Katie, Jane, Tess, Sandy and Laura, Dan and Shinkai, all the folks who gave donations to the soundboard for the concert, Mickey, Mary, Barbara, and Stan, Mike, and everyone who was able to give on Giving Tuesday. We also want to thank the teams, the Youth and Family Ministry, the PowerPoint team back there, the prayer team, and the chaplain team. We also want to thank our board members. Would you please rise if you are here? Board members are available to answer any of your questions and for discussion after service. And now, our song with Lynn, Children Go Where I Stand Thee.
And I'd like to introduce the small but mighty Unity on the River choir, who is going to bring us up for this song. Please join in. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee one by one for the little bitty baby who is wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in the manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 2 by 2, 2 for Paul and Silas, and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 3 by 3, 3 for the 3 men riding, and 2 for Paul and Silas, and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 4 by 4, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the 3 men riding, and 2 for Paul and Silas, and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 5 by 5. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding and 2 for Paul and Silas and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. Well, I'm gonna send thee 6 by 6. 6 for the 6 who never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 stood north. 3 for the 3 men riding. 2 for Paul and Silas and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing, yes, and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 7 by 7. 7 for the 7 that never got to heaven. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding and 2 for Paul and Silas and 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 8 by 8. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that never got to heaven. 6 for the 6 that couldn't get fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding and 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 8 by 8. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that couldn't get to heaven. 6 for the 6 never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding. 2 for Paul, Silas. 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 9 by 9. 9 for the 9 dressed so fine. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. And 7 for the 7 never got to heaven. 6 for the 6 that never got fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers. 4 for the 4 stood at the door. And 3 for the 3 men riding and 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing, as and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? Well, I'm gonna send thee 10 by 10. 10 for the 10 commandments. 9 for the 9 all dressed so fine. 8 for the 8 stood at the gate. For the 7 that never got to heaven. For the 6 couldn't get fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding. 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing, yes, and lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm gonna send thee 11 by 11. 11 for the 11 riders. 10 for the 10 commandments. 9 for the 9 all dressed so fine. 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate. 7 for the 7 that never got to heaven. 6 for the 6 that couldn't get fixed. 5 for the gospel preachers and 4 for the 4 that stood at the door. 3 for the 3 men riding. 2 for Paul and Silas. 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing, yes, and lying on a manger, who was born in Bethlehem. Here we go. Children, go where I say leave? How shall I say leave? Well, I'm gonna send thee 12 by 12, 12 for the 12 apostles, 11 for the 11 riders, 10 for the 10 commandments, 9 for the 9 just so fine, 8 for the 8 that stood at the gate, 7 for the 7 that never got to heaven, 6 for the 6 couldn't get fixed, 5 for the gospel preachers, 4 for the 4 that stood at the door, 3 for the 3 men riding, 2 for Paul and Cyrus, 1 for the little bitty baby who was wrapped in swaddling clothing, yes, lying in a manger, who was born in Bethlehem, who was born in Bethlehem. Unity on the River Band.
Those children got to be good and tired. We sent them far. We sent them far. Speaking of children, let us stand. Take the hand of your, well, put your hands together as we sing in the children. Walking as a light.
We are walking as a light of God. 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 We are walking. We are walking as a light of God. We are walking. We are walking. We are walking as a light of God.
Good morning. We're practicing for Christmas Eve morning pageant. And just a couple of quick announcements. We are going at 1 o'clock to, I know it was announced, the Merrimack Valley. I invite you all to come. I have not personally done it, but I heard it's a pretty amazing experience to go. So if you want to join us, we're leaving probably 5 minutes of 1. It's in Amesbury. And to deliver teddy bears and carol. Also, I do the giving tree, and we have more opportunities that came up. So if anybody missed, I'd love support to come up and get one. If you missed out, I know people usually ask because they get taken really quickly. You have another week to do it. So if anybody wants to help out, that would be great. You can come up here and grab one from me. And that's it. Thank you.
Did Joy grab one from you for us? Excellent. Because I wasn't here when the giving tree was put up, and I came back the next Sunday, and it was all gone. Because you guys are so loving and giving and generous. We mentioned the coat drive earlier. There's a box out there. We're collecting coats that are kid sizes for kids who are primarily going to the schools in Salisbury. Katie, stand real quick. Katie is spearheading this. She's made some connections with the schools there, and many of the elementary school kids do not have appropriate winter wear. So we're trying to help out with that. So bring some hats as well, some mittens. Any more sign language we want to do right now? Boots, I don't know. So new or gently used as well? Gently used, or they have to be new?
I'm knitting a bunch of hats, but I haven't been able to get to the mittens, so they're really short mittens. So the Salisbury School is looking for hats and mittens. The Amesbury School is looking for coats.
All right, so hats and mittens and coats. If you make them great, if you run one out and buy a couple pairs or something, or some gently used ones that your current kids or grandkids have outgrown, please bring them in next Sunday or anytime during the week so we can spread the love, spread the warmth, spread the peace. Speaking of peace, let's stand, take the hand of our neighbor, and close out today's service with the peace song.
presence of God watches over us.
Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed.
Go be the peace. Just a quick announcement too. We every week should probably mention Patty Barkus, and the fundraising going for her care is still going on. So if you need that link, just email me or Maura and the Webster Foundation. The Weber Foundation. But we have the link. We'd be glad to send it to you.